Hello guys, how's it going? Toofty here, and today we have the second episode of the Sentry spot guide for Enclosure. We're looking at stage 2. It's going to be awesome. If you haven't seen the first episode yet, I recommend you go back and take a look at that first. As always, I spend a bit of time on the map exploring different spots, and then I put a collection of my favourites together to share with you guys. But by no means is this a definitive guide. It's just a little bit of inspiration to get your juices flowing, so you guys can go out there, try out these, and perhaps find your own juicy spots. Anyway, I hope you enjoy, and let's jump straight in. So this is the very first area of the map. The enemies will be coming from the left-hand side here, coming out of 3 different exits. Now there's only really one spot I wanted to chat to you guys about here, and it's an absolute beauty. It's just on top of this ledge here. This is such an awesome spot, and I personally love building up here. It can shoot down on an awesome cross-section of the map, and it also takes out anyone who's using that right flank, coming around the edge of that map, and it kind of catches them by surprise, and it's quite tricky to take out. So let's take a look at this in action. So just putting my gun here. Now bear in mind, you might want to try a few different spots out. Like you can actually put it within that rock just to the right of where I put it, perhaps slightly further forward. You know, I encourage you guys to play around with it, see what works for you. Your dispenser you can put somewhere behind you, and teleporter just behind this lovely fence to your right. Now obviously we're at the beginning of the map, so the teleporter is completely vital. This is what's going to keep you and your sentry up, the support of your team. But as you can see, as enemies run past the far side of the map, they get completely demolished. And anyone who's coming on the near side of the map have a bit of a surprise waiting for them around this corner. You can sort of hang back a little bit behind this fence and use your rescue ranger to keep it up. But I did notice in this case that where I've put it, there was a couple of spots opposite that couldn't quite reach, so I had to use my wrangler to cover those spots. Anyway, as the cart goes underneath, it does end up shooting down on them as well. Again, you might want to try pushing this a little bit further forward, maybe a little bit further to the right, play around with it. And here, countless pyros just pop around this corner and get absolutely blown away. It's beautiful. A good demo or soldier should be able to spam this corner like on the near side quite well. I didn't experience it in this game, but you got to look out for that. And if so, perhaps use your rescue ranger and try and top it up, or actually grab your gun and move it to another location, which will segue us nicely to the next part of the map. Okay, so this is a really interesting little nook of the map. It's like a hairpin corner, right? And there's a few interesting spots you might want to try out. So one of the ones I was adamant that was going to work, but really didn't for me, was just on top of this little bridge here. Now, I tried this countless times, but the enemy team can just use the cart as cover, and so it really didn't work out for me. But let me know if you had any more luck than I did. Another one I tried out was on this ledge a bit further back here. I actually tried just on this ledge and also within the building as well. Again, because of the way this corner works, as the enemy team are pushing around with the cart, I found this spot very vulnerable and I didn't have much luck with it. However, another absolute beauty of a spot, which I really enjoyed playing around with, is just on this corner here. The best thing about this is it's super quick and easy to get set up here if you manage to stay alive and retreat from the earlier spot we just talked about. If you can save your gun, then it's just even better. You can just whack it up here and away you go. And it's really nice because it does protect that left flank as well as the normal route to the right. So let's jump into the game and take a look at this in action. Okay, so this was a really mental game, and it's games like this where I really love playing NG, where you're right on the edge of control, you know, you're just about to go down, but you just about survive. You're holding off the enemies by the skin of your teeth, you know, it's beautiful. So anyway, I whacked my sentry gun just on this corner here because I haven't got a lot of time. I put my dispenser behind me, and I'm starting to put pressure onto the cart. My team helping me out here. We're getting a lot of pressure from both sides, so I'm trying to spam this left choke to kind of keep them occupied and use my sentry gun to finish them off. Got my dispenser in that corner there. It's not the perfect spot for it again, probably. It's okay, it means that it's kind of safe in that corner, but it's not great for your team. Here I lure this heavy, and he's not aware of my sentry gun, and I lure him right around this corner. I'm just about able to take him out. I love doing that when you're getting set up and you can just about take out people using your sentry gun and like baiting them into the trap. See, I'm keeping an eye on this left side, and unfortunately I kind of get cut off by this pyro, so I do end up retreating and going down. But you could see the kind of damage I was doing, and I wasn't even set up properly. I was kind of getting a lot of pressure and doing a lot of work. So it's a great spot, and I recommend you checking it out, trying out a few different variations of that. Okay, so the next part of the map is a really big area, and there are several really cool places you can try out. So the enemies will be coming through these 3 routes here. Bear in mind, again, that in this map, the roofs are not available to be built on, unfortunately. I think the most common spot you might see is probably slap bang in the middle on this ledge here. It's actually a really nice spot. It's difficult to get set up, it's right in the open, but if you are able to before they push under this tunnel, then it can be really nice because it really sort of shoots down onto them in this massive choke point that kind of reminds me a little bit of the second to last area in Borneo. So another awesome spot, especially worth using if there's another NG building in the middle there, and that's on the left hand side here. So it's right next to this little metal pack. Again, it shoots down onto the car into that kind of death pit in the middle, but it also can cover anyone coming through the left flank, which is a really popular route into this stage of the map, much more so than on the opposite side. The final thing I wanted to mention, although I won't go into too much detail on this, is the idea of building behind this hut here. Now, I find this really useful if the enemy team are pushing very quickly, you're unsure as to how aggressive you can build your sentry gun. It's a technique I use time and time again, building in cover, building in safety, and then moving your sentry gun forward. So this is a spot I like to use. You can use the ammo pack inside this hut, and once you're set up, you can move your sentry gun forward to one of the locations we just chatted about. So let's take a look at how these work in action. So here I'm just using that location we talked about behind the hut, just to get set up. Really useful, especially when you're getting pressured like crazy and you're unsure as to whether you can even defend this area of the map. So here I'm moving my sentry gun forward, and let's take a look first at this left hand side of the map. Just putting it within this grass here. The moment I do that, I'm moving away from it. I don't want to turn my back to this flank to the left here, and I'm just pressuring this choke, making sure they're occupied, so if they do push through, they don't see my sentry gun, hopefully until it's too late. The nice thing about this spot, and everything I talk about today actually, you don't have to stand right next to your sentry gun, right? Especially with the rescue ranger, you can keep your distance to avoid the enemy taking both you and your sentry gun out in one go. Just putting my dispenser behind this rock here, it's quite a nice cover for it. You can also put it a little bit further to the right behind the boxes. Finally getting a telly up, and again, just keeping my distance from the sentry gun, luring people through. It's quite nice to use yourself as bait here, to lure enemies through, shoot them with the rescue ranger or the shotgun or whatever you're using, and let your sentry gun finish them off. It's nice having the medium metal pack and health pack just behind your sentry as well, so if you do need to tank it, you can run in and get topped up and take a lot of damage. So it's a really nice spot, definitely worth checking out, especially if there's another engineer on your team taking up the spot we'll look at next. So I'm using the same technique here of building kind of within cover. I'm not putting it in the final destination I want it. I'm just building in cover, and then I'm going to move it out in just a second. There's a huge pack just in this hut here. You can rotate down there and come back up and get set up pretty quickly. And you can put your dispenser just behind you here, somewhere in cover, so you can stay topped up as you protect your sentry gun. And as you can see, anyone coming down this slope immediately gets pressured by the sentry gun. It's a really tricky angle for enemies to take out. And I've put it in a spot where it just about reaches the left flank too, which is really important because, as I mentioned earlier, it's a really popular pathway of the map. So the general rule for this spot is put it as far right as you can, with it still being able to cover that left flank. Where I've got it here, it also just about shoots down into that room to the right as well, which is nice. So it does actually cover that right flank as well. So really is covering wherever the enemy's coming from, which is really cool. It just means that you're going to be under a lot of pressure, but that's kind of how I like to play engineer. So it's a lot of fun. Again, try out some different spots along here and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Okay, so let's take a look at this final area of the map. Surprisingly, there aren't many awesome spots in here to use. You know, there aren't any kind of fail-safe spots. A lot of people might build on top of this ledge here. This is right in the open, you know, everyone's going to see it. I've never been able to make this work, so it's not one I'm going to be talking about today. Another spot that you see all the time is just in this corner here. It's a little bit boring because it is, you know, the standard spot, but on the other hand, I am going to talk about it today because it is kind of useful as the very last ditch attempt to hold this point. One final spot I wanted to chat to you guys about that's a little bit different and I find useful, especially if engineers are building in that previous corner. You can actually pop up your sentry gun in this corner here. It's a little bit sneaky, you know, it's probably easy to take out, but it has the element of surprise. And so it should be very effective for at least one decent push. So let's jump back into the game and see how these guys play out. So here's the classic spot we talked about in the corner. One thing that I will point out is that this is a really nice spot for your dispenser, just at this exact angle here, just behind this cover. You'll find that most of the time the enemy won't spot it, so even if your sentry goes down, your dispenser might be able to survive. Anyone coming in the main route through or via that little room opposite should get taken down quite easily, but you have to bear in mind that there is a rooftop that the enemy can access opposite as well. And I think this is probably one of the biggest vulnerabilities for this spot. An enemy soldier can just get on that roof and sort of peek, shooting his rockets down and take you out fairly easily. But once I'm set up, I like to kind of hover where I put my dispenser just a little bit further back, using my rescue ranger if necessary to top up my sentry gun, making sure I'm always, you know, spamming the cart, putting pressure on the enemy, distracting them from the location of my sentry gun, and just trying to have as big an impact as possible on the game. But this example here kind of shows how easy it is to take down this spot. At the moment, an enemy knows exactly where it is, especially a demo man. They can just put stickies on that corner, they don't even have to peek the corner, and they can take it down with splash damage fairly easily. It's not the ideal spot, but it can be useful as a last-ditch attempt. One final thing I do like doing when I'm using this spot, as I said earlier, retreating back to my dispenser, and then if I'm worried it's about to go down, just grabbing it with the rescue ranger and putting it back up behind this cover as far back as possible. Again, it's not an ideal spot, but it might just help you clutch that objective in the last moments of a game. And last but not least, well, it kind of is least, it's not a great spot, but it's got that surprise factor I talked about. They're going to expect you to build on the other side, so for at least one push you can catch them off guard, building this little corner here. I'm just putting my dispenser on this ledge here. It's not a great spot, you might want to put that somewhere a little bit more sneaky. Yeah, it will take anyone out who comes out of this left room quite nicely. And in this case, an Uber comes in. And it takes a good while for them to spot my sentry gun. And they do take it out, but it bides us some time. And it took a good while for them to actually spot it. And if they weren't Ubered, it probably would have taken them out quite nicely. Well, there we have it. Stage 2 of Enclosure. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm trying to spread these out a little bit. I don't want to do 3 solid weeks of pure sentry spots, so I'm spreading them out a little bit. But look out for the next episode because there's some really nice juicy sentry spots in the 3rd stage of Enclosure. So thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you guys in the next video.